from using those files that I have given to you. So now, as you know that how we can see the databases in our server. So databases, sorry. Okay, so these are the databases. So we will work with this database, University DB. I have already created a database using those files. So let's come to this database. In order to issue command against this database, you need to use command. So let me write university underscore DB. And now my database has been changed, and now I can work with this database, university underscore DB. So if you want to see the tables, so we have a command, show tables. Okay, so this command will show you the all the list of tables that this database contains. So these are the set of tables that I am having. I am having total 14 tables in this database. And as, you also know that I think we already have discussed this. When you want to see the structure of a table, you can use describe command, DESC. Let's say we want to see instructor. Okay, great. So now we just need to see, or we need to learn how these tables are created in our database. Okay, but before going to we need to understand the data types that are supported by MySQL, and then we will jump on to how to create tables. Okay, so let's come back to the data types. Okay, so let me make it presentable. Hmm? So MySQL supports a variety of data types. Data types you already understand. These are the building blocks that allow you to store certain kind of data into the columns. Okay, so you can also say that these data types are used to define domain name of the columns. We already know that in case of relational model, each column in a table have its own domain. Okay, you have, and that domain obviously you need to define when you are going to create a table. Okay, so what kind of values that domain will contain, you will specify with the help of the data types that MySQL supports to you. Okay, so let's discuss them. So MySQL supports variety of data types. We will see only some of them. First data type is numerical data type. That means these are the data types that can help you to build numerical type domains. The domains that can contain numerical values like integer numbers, variety of integer numbers, and with different sizes, or floating point numbers. Okay, then you have string data types. We will see that how to create a different string related domains using these data types. Then obviously you may require to store dates and times in certain columns. So MySQL also have some data types for these columns also. So you can define the domains for certain columns that may store dates or times. Okay, timestamp also. Then there are some other data types are there that are spatial data types or JSON data types. We will not discuss these data types. These are the data types that also offer some advanced kind of domain creations. Hmm. So spatial data types are generally used for geographical databases. Okay, like location based databases and so on, where you store locations, etc. And in case of JSON, JSON data types are actually used to store the information of objects. So mainly social networks generally uses these data types heavily. Okay, where the information about objects like user accounts, user posts, tweets, user comments, all these information, all these objects information is stored in JSON format. Okay, so now let's see what are the kind of numerical data types that MySQL have. So first you see that you have a data type bit, m. Okay, so I have written them in capital, but these are not case sensitive. So bit data type is a kind of bit field actually. So whenever suppose you want to store one bit value, or let's say 2-bit value in a column, or let's say a fixed length of value in form of in a sequence of bits. So you can take the help of this data type, or you can use this data type to define a domain that can contain a sequence of bits as input. Okay. For example, one simple example is that you may require uh, uh, is a domain that can have only two values like 0 and 1. Okay. And your 0 may be representing gender, let's say male, and 1 is representing female, or 0 may be representing yes and 1 may be representing no, kind of thing, or vice versa. You can reverse them also. Okay, so bit field type defines a domain that can contain set of bits. Okay, so now with the help of this value m, this parameter m, you can define what will be the size of this domain actually. Okay, for what, for the for the size of the value that you can contain in a column, you can define with this variable m. So suppose you require that we need to store 1, or maximum value will be 64. And m is a kind of optional. Okay, you may not require to specify m, you can also write m directly. Okay, and because the 1 is the default value, so if you not specify any value of m, it will take m equal to 1. Okay, so let me give you an example. So suppose that you may require to define a column, let's say gender, and you want to store two kind of values, 0 and 1, or that 0 represents male, so 0 represents male and 1 represents female. Okay, so you can define gender bit like this. Okay, or suppose you want to support more values, like you want to add more value, 0 for male, 1 for female, and let's say sorry, not 2, it is 1, it will be 1 0. Then so you can make it 0 0 0 1, and 1 0 may represent, let's say transgender, and you can keep one more value, 1 1, as let's say other, any other. Okay, so in this case you will define gender like this: gender bit, in bracket you will write 2. Okay, so this is how you will define a domain for a column of this type. You can also have if you define let's say not gender, we can take any other attribute, or let's say um, I don't remember what is the name of the column. Let's assume x is some name of the column. You can take bit 3. So now once you define this, this can store these values: 000, or 001, 010, 011, and so on up to 1. Total 8 values can be supported. Okay, so this is how you will use this field. Okay, now let's come to next data type that you can use is tiny int. So tiny int is a kind of data type that support that can help you to create
सर कुछ लोग का ज्वाइन नहीं हो रहा है.
इस टाइम पे ज्वाइन करेंगे आप? मैंने यार 20 का टाइम दिया था, इट्स 24 मिनट लेट. ठीक है, सो डोंट वरी अबाउट देम. आप ज्वाइन कर लिया ना आपने? So tiny int there, tiny int is a data type that can allow you to store a small range integer values in a column. Okay. Uh, so suppose if you require a column that you think that the column cannot require values more than this range 0 to 255, all the values are in this range. So for example, let's say marks, students, marks of a student. So always these will be remain between 0 to 100. So you can use this data type to store the marks, and I'm assuming that marks are integers. Hmm? I'm assuming that marks are being stored as integer values. Okay. And if you want to allow negative range also, then you can use the range will be from minus 128 to plus 127. Okay. So tiny int actually takes 1 byte. So you know that in 1 byte we can have this range. Hmm? If you are using unsigned, then it will be well 0 to 55. If you are using normally tiny int, then the range will be minus 128 to 127. So you can proceed this tiny int with unsigned. You can write unsigned tiny int. Okay, this m is optional. Okay, it just displays the width of the column. कि column की width जब data display होगा तो कितना width लेना चाहिए, how much width it should take. Okay, so m is not necessary. Now there is one more data type that can be used to support or to store Boolean values. So if you suppose you want that in a particular column, I would like to store, or I will require to store only Boolean values like true, false, then you can use this data type. So you can just write, let's say, maybe the name of the column that you are want to have is, let's say, xy. So xy bool, you will just write that. So bool will, or you can also use boolean. So bool is the actually short form of boolean. So either you can use this boolean, or you can go for short form also. Both are equivalent. There is no issue. Okay. Now when you store bool, so this is actually synonym to tiny int. Hmm? This is synonym to tiny int 1, and here 0 will be false and 1 will be considered as true, or non-zero value is considered as true. Then suppose that you want to store, you cannot, you have a column that may require integer values that don't fit in this range. That means you require more large range. Okay. So so there is one more option for you, that is small int m. Okay, so this small int m having range from minus 32768 to plus 32767. So if you want to store positive or negative both values, your column may get or may have negative values or positive values, then you can use normal small int. Okay, and suppose that you know that in my column no negative value is going to come, then you can use unsigned keyword with this unsigned small int, and again m is not very important. Okay, it is just set the width of in what width should be used to display your number. Hmm? This is just a kind of formatting information. Hmm? So you see that in case of if you want to store integers in your columns, you have different ranges. Okay, so it will be it why MySQL supports different kind of integer data type, because uh, because you may require different ranges. Okay, uh, and defining different ranges can help you or can give you more flexibility. Suppose you want to store only small integers, or your the columns, the range of values that your column is going to have is very small, then you can go for small int. If it is a bit larger, then you can go for um, any other range, and if it is your range is very small, you can go for tiny int. So it actually it saves your space. It saves you, it gives you an option to save memory space. That's why different integer data types variety is given to you. So you have options, you can choose these options, any of these options from as per your need. Now suppose that your data requirement or a column set of values that you are going to have in that column may not fit in this range, then you have one more data type, that is medium int. So medium int support more larger range from small int. That is the range 0 to 1, this number. And this is the range for negative. Okay. So if you require that your data should be in this range or in this range, you can go for medium int. And if suppose your data requirement, the range requirement is larger than that, then there is one more option for you, int or integer normally. So the range is this one. Okay, this is the C long int type range, long int. Okay, and again, if you suppose your requirement is not fulfilled by this range, that means you require more larger values, then you go for big int. Okay, so this is very large range. And if you know that your column is not going to have any negative value, then you can make it in unsigned, so your range will become this, from this to this. Okay, so this is the integer data types that you have in MySQL. Okay. This is just a summary of those. So these are the storage requirement. Tiny int only takes 1 byte. If you go for a small int, it will take 2 byte into the memory. Medium int will take 3 byte. Int will be of 4 byte, and big int will require 8 byte. Help of decimal, you can also define even float numbers actually. So this is a fixed point number format, fixed point number where decimal point is fixed. Okay, so there are actually two kind of representation for real numbers in computer memory: fixed point and floating point. So we are not going to discuss fixed point and floating point here, because these are the out of our scope. Okay, out of scope of this course. uh, if you are interested in knowing, you can read any book on computer architecture, where you will able to find the details about these number representation. Okay, so decimal data type is used to store fixed point numbers, or actually your numbers will be stored in fixed point notation format. And the syntax is this: you need to write decimal m comma d. So for example, suppose you may define a column like this. Maybe you define a salary column, salary, and let's say 10 comma 2. Okay, we will see what is this, the 10 mean, what is the meaning of this 10 and 2. Okay, so this is how we will define. Sorry, I forgot to add a data type. Just write salary, just wrote salary. You need to write salary, this is the name of the column, and then we will write decimal, and then we will specify these size values. So here actually 10 represents total number of digits your number can have, and 2 are the digits that are after decimal point. Okay, so you can have all the numbers that can have maximum 10 digits, total 10 digits, including these two. So that means here you will have decimal point. After decimal point, your number can have 2 digits here. Okay, and before decimal point, you can have 8 digits. Okay, and this is after decimal point. So after decimal point, you can have 2 digits. So this is the fractional part. So your fractional part will be of at most 2 digits. And this part, sometimes we call it mantissa. Okay, or integer part will be of 8 digits. So this is, in this way you can find out what will be the size of the number. Okay. Okay, so let's come back. So here, as you see, m specifies the total number of digits that as I told you earlier, and d specifies the number of digits that will be there after decimal point. Okay, So the value of M, maybe maximum value is 65 and this value for D is 30. So that means you can have a number that can support precision of 30 digits after decimal point. Okay, so maximum you can have here is, maximum value you can have here is 30. Okay, at this point maximum is 30. So that means you can have a number, you can store a number in this column that can have 30 digits after decimal points. Okay, and the maximum value of this total is 64. Sorry, 65. So maximum value for this is 65 here. So this can be 65. So अगर आप देखें, if you see, then 30 digits goes here and then remaining is 35. So your number can have 35 digits at place of the integer. In this case, if you allow this 30 digits this side and then the total digits maximum, you can have 30 at this point. Okay, so if you reduce this number, then you can increase this side. So for example, if you let's say take 2 digits after decimal point, then you can have 63 digits before decimal point. Yeah, so sum will be M actually total. So the sum cannot be greater than 65. That is the story. Okay, now इसमें जो sign है, sign is not counted. Okay, now if you MySQL also offer that is another data type that is called float. So in case of float, the syntax is float M comma D. Okay, here the meaning of M and D are same. Okay, and the range of this is from this to this. So if you are using normally float MD, then obviously if you write float MD, then negative numbers will be allowed. But suppose that your column is not going to have any negative number, then your range will become double. Okay, so range will become from there to there. Okay, so positive numbers can be there. So the total up to minimum number is this, maximum number is this one. Okay, up to 38, 10 to the power 38. The meaning of this is E is 10 to the power 38. So this number indicates that 3.402823466 into 10 to the power 38. So you can imagine what kind of number is this, 10 to the power 38. Here you have 10 to the power minus 38. So the meaning of E minus 38 means 10 to the power minus 38. So this is the size. This indicates the size of this data type, float comma MD. Now, important difference here you need to note is that in case of decimal, your numbers can be stored or numbers are stored in fixed point format. Okay, and if you use float, your numbers will be stored in floating point format. Sometimes we call it scientific notation also. So these are actually two formats for storing real numbers for computers. So float, if you want to use floating point notations, you can use float, or if you want to store your numbers in fixed point number notation or fixed point number format, you go for decimal. Generally, as a user level, it doesn't matter for me कि मुझे decimal use करना है या float use करना है, both are there. But आपको जब scientific computation करना हो, if you want to work with very large small numbers and large numbers, like if you are working with some project that is manipulating the data of or the distance among atoms or their radius or radius of the atoms and so on. So in that case, you may require very small values to very large values also. And if suppose you are astronaut and you are using for your calculation the distance among two planets, then you will require very large number. Okay, or distance between two particles you are using, then you may require very small numbers. So in that case, the float will be suitable for you. Okay. So single precision floating point numbers are accurate to approximately 7 decimal places. So this is single precision floating point number. Okay, this is called single precision floating point number because here the decimal points length is limited. And suppose that you want to have higher precision, that means you want to have more number of digits after decimal points, then you can go for double precision data types. Okay, so double precision data type, the syntax is double, so the keyword is double, and M and D are the same that we have already discussed, and these are the ranges. You just read these ranges. So now you see that we have very small ranges now also. Here you see that 10 to the power minus 38. So we are going to have very small number. And if you want to go for larger side, you can have number with range up to 10 to the power 308. So very large number. Okay, then there is one more kind of simple notation, float p. So here, if you want to have floating point numbers, you can use just float p, and in that case, you will not decide the precision. That precision will be decided on the basis of the number you are going to store. Okay, so MySQL in that case takes the decision automatically. Okay, so you do not need to worry about that if you don't understand all these stuffs. You will not require all these things. You can just use float. MySQL will take care automatically whether number should be stored as a single precision number or double precision number. Okay, so these were the numerical data types. So in case of you see that in case of numerical data type, we have integer data types and also real number related data types. In string format, the domains of the columns that are going to store strings, you can have these data types. So first data type is char m. Char stands for character, and m is the length. Okay, so it is a fixed length string of characters. Okay, so suppose you want to store a fixed length string in your uh, column, then you can go for char m. So suppose that your column is going to have a string of, let's say, length at most 20. So you can define char m. Char, so m means 20. So char 20, like this. You can have like name char, you can have 20. Okay, so now you will have a column. Then the name of the column will be this one, name. Okay, and the length of the string that is going to be stored in this column is 20. So that means you can store a string of at most length 20. Now remember that you cannot store a string in this column that is having length more than 20. Okay, now it may be the case that if you are going to store a string that is having length smaller than 20, then obviously MySQL database will automatically add space. Okay, it will prefix the spaces before the string. Okay, so suppose you are going to store a string in this column of, let's say, length 10. What it will do, it will use your 10 characters, like so one first character, second character, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, and so on up to 10. So let's say these are the 10 spaces or 10 places where the characters will be stored. So your string will be stored here, and then remaining 10, some empty characters or spaces will be added. Okay, so total length will become 20. Okay, so so now you observe that what is happening here. If you store a string that is of having less than length that you are given, so automatically some spaces will be prefixed before your string, and then your string will be stored. So ultimately the database will take 20 full length of 20 bytes or 20 characters. तो अगर लेंथ कम है तो ये एडिशनल कैरेक्टर आपके स्ट्रिंग में आगे ऐड करके 20 की बना लेगा, एंड देन इट विल स्टोर द स्ट्रिंग. नाउ इंपॉर्टेंट इज, जैसा एज आई टोल्ड यू दैट यू कैन नॉट स्टोर a string of length more than 20 in this case. Okay, if you want to store length larger than 20, then you have to redefine it with larger length. Okay, and the maximum value here you can use is 256. So this value can be 1 or 2 or up to, sorry, not 256, it will be 255. Okay, it will be 256, not 255. So 1, 2, up to 256. So maximum characters can be accommodated are 256. So you can redefine it like that: name, char, 256. Okay. So now you can store a name of 256 character also. So if you are going to have a name that is larger than this, then you cannot store that in this column. Okay. So this is the property of this column. Now, this is a fixed length string, but MySQL also have an option of defining a variable length string. So for that, you have a varchar m. So let's discuss what is the meaning of varchar m. So suppose that you define varchar. So name, you define the column name. Let's say student name. Let me write it. Let me rewrite again. You want to create a column student name, and you define like this varchar, and let's say suppose you define 50. So now you can store in this column
No, sir.
any string that is having length 1 or 2 or 3 or up to 50. Okay. So now what is the difference here in char and varchar? Here your string was of fixed length. Here your string is of
Hello,
variable
sir.
length. Somebody is saying something.
Yes, sir. Ali wants to join the class. He's not able to join.
So as I already told you that you have joined ना, so don't worry. ठीक है, आप बहुत लेट लोग ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं उससे डिस्टर्बेंस होता है ना, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है कि कोई कभी भी ज्वाइन करना शुरू कर दे। इसलिए आज ऐड कर लेता हूँ, इसके बाद ये सब आदत आप छोड़ दीजिए। एवरी आई डोंट नो व्हाई पीपल डू दिस काइंड ऑफ। तो बाद में क्या होता है, मुझे ज्वाइन कराने के लिए अपना लेक्चर रोकना पड़ता है। ठीक है, दैट इज नॉट ए गुड थिंग। तो टाइमली ज्वाइन करिए। ओके, चलिए। So we were discussing that the difference between these two. Okay, so in case of varchar, you can have a variable length string. So what is the meaning of variable length string? That means if suppose you are going to store a string of, let's say, length 40 in this column, then it will only occupy 40 bytes in your memory space, only 40 bytes. Okay, now suppose that if you have defined the same data type, same column with char 50, suppose आपने अगर define किया होता with char 50, then once if you store in this column a string of length 40, then still it will occupy all these 50 length. Okay, so how it will occupy all these 50 is actually your 40 characters of strings will be there, and then they will be prepended with 10 spaces. So it will always take 50 length. Okay, so this is the difference between both of them. Okay, so this is actually very efficient in case of your memory, but obviously it makes it makes access of data bit difficult, but बहुत ज़्यादा दिक्कत नहीं आती है. That's why varchar is there. Okay, so this is the difference between both of them, varchar and also one difference is that char is having small range, it is having very high range, length is very high. So you can have 0 to this length. Okay, 65,535. So 0 length का तो आप कुछ नहीं करेंगे, it is that means minimum 1 to 65,535. This is the number of characters you can have in this thing. Okay, now when you define varchar, MySQL store your value either in 1 byte or 2 byte depending on the length of the string that you have given. Okay, If your length of the string fits in 1 byte, then it will use only 1 byte, and it doesn't fits in 1 byte, then it will use occupy 2 byte space. And the character, the encoding mechanism or the character set that is being used to store your characters is UTF-8. So it is actually a encoding format similar to ASCII format. ASCII में क्या होता है? ASCII में you only support English letters and some digits and special symbols, but UTF-8 or UTF-16 supports more letters. Okay. Now these are the two string data types. You will see that we will use this very frequently. Then we will have tiny BLOB. Okay, so BLOB stands for binary large object. Here your data is stored in form of characters. Here your data is stored in binary format. Okay, so actually strings are stored in two formats. अगर आपको नहीं समझ में आता है, don't need to go into the details. Okay, strings can be represented in form of characters or in form of bytes. ठीक है, so it is just a matter of interpretation. प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज लेवल पर ये किया जाता है, सो यहाँ उसको डिस्कस करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ओके, सो व्हेन यू वांट टू स्टोर योर स्ट्रिंग इन फॉर्म ऑफ binary format, you can go for BLOB, and that is one alternative for BLOB, tiny text also. Okay. One minute. हेलो, हाँ हाँ दे दीजिएगा पे. हाँ 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 बेबो हाइट्स 404. हाँ हाँ sorry. So if your requirement is not being satisfied by tiny BLOB, and let's say you require larger range, you can go for BLOB, and its equivalent is text. Okay, so if this is a field with maximum length of this size, okay, or that is written alternatively in 2 to the power 16 minus 1, so both are actually the same actually. And then if you want more length, then you can go for medium BLOB or medium text. Length becomes this one, okay, or 2 to the power 24 minus 1. Then if you want more larger length, you can go for long BLOB or long text. Okay, so these are the, so it supports around 2 to the power 32. So 2 to the power 32 means 4 GB. Okay, so if you want to store a string of 4 GB size, that means you can store actually a complete book. Still it will take less time, so multiple books text you can store in this size, that is 4 GB. So it is very large range. Okay, so it will cater if you want to store multiple books in single column also, that can also be done. So these are the data types that you can use for string handling. Okay, and then there is one more data type, that is enum. So enum or enumerated, you might have studied this data type in C, so that is similar to that. So for example, if you want to define a list of values that can be stored in the column, so let's say I want to have a column where only these 3 values can be stored. So I can define a column, let's say maybe designation, and I write ABC like this. Okay, so now you can store either A or B or C in that column. So if you want to define a fixed set of values for a column, you can go for enum. Okay. Then you can also define set. So if you want to allow a if you want to have a column that can store a set of values, then you can go for set also. Now, in case of set, the values are internally represented as integers. So it is similar to enum also. थोड़ा सा concept same as set और enum के use करने का. Okay. And set can have maximum 64 distinct values. Okay, so let's stop with these data types. So now, because if we will discuss all these data type in a one go, it will become boring for you. So now let's come to some practical aspect of practical aspect. Okay. So now let's come to creating tables. So we have discussed data types up to some extent, and now let's define some set of tables. So now suppose that I want to have a table, let's say instructor. No, not instructor. Let's define a new table. I want to have a table named as student. So I want to have a student ID. I will call it SID. Then S name, that is contains name of the student. And suppose I want to store maybe his mobile number, and maybe his gender, and I also want to store his age. Then program जिसमें उसने enroll किया है, and let's say total credits. So suppose these are the set of columns that I want to have in my table. So let's see how to define a table. So in order to create a table in your database, you need to have access or need to have create table privilege. Okay, if you don't have create table privilege, you will not be able to run the command. Okay, so जिस method से मैंने आपको बताया था account create करने के लिए, if you create account, you will follow by following that method, you will be able to create table easily. So let me show you how to create a table. So let's create a table. So we will write create table. This is a command that you need to have, and let me define the name of the column. Let's say CUSB underscore student. This is the name of the table. I am going to have this name. Why I am taking a different name? Because I already have a table with name student. Okay, now you should remember that you cannot have two tables with same name in your database. That means the name of the tables should be unique. Okay, otherwise you will not be able to create table. So that's why I have taken a different name. So now what we have seen, you need to write create table and then name of the table. After that, you will specify within brackets the definition of the column, and everything will be end with semicolon. Okay, so now let's define length of the column. So all the columns. So what the columns I'm going to have? I'm going to have SID, and let make it varchar, and assume that the length of ID is let's say we are going to have an ID of fixed length 8, char 8. Okay, as you see that in case of your enrollment number is of fixed length. Every person's enrollment number is having fixed number of characters. So that's why I am taking char 8. Okay, and then as name, I can make it as varchar because names are variable length in nature, and I want to allow maximum length of 50. Okay, so what should be the maximum length? You need to decide. Okay, you can take it 60, you can go for 100 also. Okay, varchar. And what was the other columns? Mobile. So I'm going to store mobile in a string format. Okay, you can make it numeric also, but it will always be a good idea to make it a string. Okay, generally we do not want to do we don't do any kind of mathematical calculations or a mobile number. That's why it is a good idea or to make it string. So let's make it char and mobile number is of length 10, so char 10. Okay, now and what was other column, and then gender. So you can define it as num also, gender, enum num, and you can define two values, m comma f. Okay, and comma, and उसके बाद I have an age. जब कम कर देते हैं, एज ज़्यादा एट्रीब्यूट्स हो रहे हैं, लेट्स कट इट. टोटल क्रेडिट मैं बस डिफाइन कर देता हूँ. लेट्स कट सम कॉलम्स, credits, and you can make them small int. You can define them unsigned also, unsigned small int or tiny int. Let's make it tiny int. Okay, great. We can fix its length to 2, so it will be displayed into 2 characters. So this is how we will create a table. The name of the column, then data type of the column. Okay, that means I am going to define the domain actually, what kind of values will be given or will be permitted in this table, this column. Then I have another column that is student name. It is a varchar actually, so it you can store any string of maximum length 50 in this column. Then mobile, you will store a string of length 10. Then we are having a separate column gender that supports enumeration, enumerated values. So two values are there, m and f. And then credits, which is unsigned tiny int. So that means we are going to have a positive value only. You know that credits are always positive, no negative credits there. So let's enter it. Okay, so some error is there. Unsigned. Okay, so let's remove it unsigned. I think there is some issue with this. Tiny int. Okay, so now our query has been created successful, and our table has been created. So now you can see the tables using show tables command, and you see that the CUSB student is there. Sorry. Hello. Okay, sorry. So this is how you can create a table, and our table is created. Now, if you want to see uh, again the definition of the table, you just need to write so create table. Name of the table I have forgot. CUSP underscore. what you see, what I have done, I just write so create table CUSB student. So it will show you the command that you have given for creating a table. Yes. So this is the whole definition of my create table command. Some things has been added. You see that we have not added these kind of default null, etc. So these are actually integrity constraints that have been added automatically, and they have been added as a default form, default value. Engine और ये सब अभी आपको समझने की जरूरत नहीं है. We will discuss them later. Okay. So with the help of so create table command, you can see the definition of the create table actually. So for example, uh, let's see some definition of some other tables also. So tables, let me first show you the tables, and let's suppose I want to see what is the definition of let's say instructor table. So आप लिखेंगे so create table instructor. This is the definition. Instructor, create table instructor id varchar 5 not null, name varchar 20 not null, department name. So this is the definition of the create table. Okay, these keys you are seeing that foreign key is there, references department or department name. Sorry. It will not work here. Okay. Now let's see. CUSB underscore STUDNT. This is our definition. Okay. You can use describe command. So what is the difference between both of these commands? Create table, so create table and DSC table name. It will show you a summarized information about the structure of the table. But in this case, you are seeing the exact command that you have given to create the table, or the command actually that you have given to create a table. So this query is actually giving complete details of the definition of the table. Okay, and this information is actually coming from your data dictionary. Actually, everything is coming from data dictionary, but this is the form of the create table command that is stored in your data dictionary. Okay, so this is the details of the create table command. Now, we have not defined one thing. We have not defined any kind of constraints there. So you see that SID that allows null, SName it also allows null values. So by default, when you define a column, then not null constraint is all not null constraint is not added. Okay. So if you want that the column should not allow any kind of null value, you have to specify not null integrity constraint. Okay. Similarly, you see that there is no primary key has been defined. So when you define a table, you have to define the primary key. So let's see how to define the primary key actually. So let me come to definition again. So let me first drop this table CUSB student. Drop. Sorry. Okay. So this is a command drop table. So you can note it down. Drop table command is used to delete a table from your database. Okay, we will see, we will discuss some of these commands. So I just required that command, so I use that. We have not discussed this command, but let me tell you, this command is used to delete a table from your database. And now it is important that you should remember that this command is a indestructible command. That means once you drop table, you will not be able to recover it. Okay, so you should use this command carefully. Now I just wanted to display you how to drop a command table, so I have displayed this command. Now again let's define this table let's create this table. Now let's create this table with some integrity constraints that we have not added. Okay, so I'm just using page up key so that I will be able to get the commands previously that I have typed. Okay, so मुझे क्या करना पड़ेगा, इससे क्या होगा, I do not require to type this command again and I can edit this command. Okay, so what I want to have this column as primary key. So I just write primary key here. Okay, so now it will define that this column will become primary key. And let's say you want that whenever you enter your data, this data should be given. That means mobile number cannot, okay, mobile number, let's make it optional. We want that this should be given, not null. So you want to add a not null constraint with this column. So in order to add a not null constraint, you just need to write not null near the column before at the time of column definition. So just you see that I want that gender should not be skipped. Gender has to be given. Okay. So now when you will insert any record in this table, you have to give the gender value. If you don't give, the database will not accept your insertion query. It will reject it. Okay, why? Because I have make it mandatory that you have to give this value. So not null constraint has been added. So let's run this. So again, the table has been created, and now let's see again DESC. Let's describe this command again. Oh, sorry. Let's create again. Table create. And DSC. Now you see that constraints are added. SID null. It is written no, and key ke, there is a column with key name PRI. So PRI means this column is primary key. Okay, and you see no. I have not added any kind of not null constraint here, but it has been automatically added because you know that in case of primary key, you cannot insert any null value in this primary key column. So this is automatically taken. As name null is allowed because it is written yes. Here it is also written yes. I have written not null constraint with gender. So that means you see that there is now no is written. Earlier you see that there was yes. Okay, and now you see here no is there. So that means now you have to give gender. You cannot skip gender. You cannot keep it null. You have to provide the value of gender. Okay, and credits. Yes. Now there is one more column you see default. So actually when you create tables, you can define a default value for a column. Okay, when you create a table, you can define a default value. So what is the meaning of default value? Default value means if you skip or if you don't give any value for a particular column, then database will automatically take the default value that you have given. So for example, suppose we can define a default value for credits. We can write default, let's say 80. Oh, sorry, the table is already there. So let me remove it and then we will recreate it. It's a default value. Okay, so now let's describe again. Now you see that the default value has been added. So now what it says that if when during the insertion of a record, if I don't give any value for this credit column, database will automatically store this value. Okay, for that record, it will take automatically the value 80. Got it? Any doubt? Any doubt?
Sir,
Yeah.
create table, sir.
To create table.
Yes, sir. For that actual query, we are getting the actual query. So, is the query has been saved or it is derived from the table?
So create table. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
it was saved actually in data dictionary. So I am just displaying that information from taking data from data dictionary. So table, so create table command actually retrieves that information from data dictionary. So actually create table command is a DDL command. We will see that, we will discuss when we will start SQL. So SQL have different kind of queries. So there are some queries that are called DDL queries. DDL queries are those queries that are used to define the format of the logical design of your database. So create table comes under the category of DDL command. So any DDL command is always saved in data dictionary. Okay. So when you define a create table or when you give a create table command to create a table, so that definition that you have given is stored into the data dictionary. नाउ यू सी दैट हमने जो डेफिनेशन दी थी उसमें कुछ एक्स्ट्रा चीजें भी आ गई थी, वो इसलिए क्योंकि देयर आर सम डिफॉल्ट थिंग्स आर देयर they have that you have not defined but they have been added automatically. So that's thing. There is a thing that is added engine. So that is actually a storage engine that MySQL offer different kind of storage engine. NODB is one of that kind of storage engine. If time will permit, we will talk about storage engine. What is a storage engine? Okay. So many things are automatically taken. You have not defined, and those are taken by the database automatically, and they are stored in data dictionary. So this was actually everything. This actually all these things were stored in data dictionary. And when you issue a so create table command for a particular table, you get this information from data dictionary. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay. So now let's try to work some with database or some tables. Actually, let's work with some data with the tables or how to retrieve the data. Let's see. So let me show the tables. Now let's do some data retrieval from your database. So we will work with instructor table. Okay. So let's see first DSC instructor. Okay, this is your instructor table that is having 4 columns. Now initially I don't know what is there in instructor table. Suppose you are interested in seeing what is in the information that is stored in my instructor table. So in order to see all the records, you just need to write this: select star from instructor. Okay. So you see 50 rows are there. So that means your table contains 50 records. And you see that this is the instructor ID, name of the instructor, accounting department is there, his department is this, and this is the salary. Okay, so these are there. Okay, so if you want to see all the records from a table without any condition, you just need to write this query: select star. So star means all the columns. I am interested in all the columns. From is a keyword actually, and then name of the table. And let's see, I just want to see the content of department table. So this is the information of department table. You know that department table have 3 columns: department name, building, and budget. So there is an accounting department in the university, and this is the building name, and this is the budget in dollars. This is the astronomy department. This is the name of the building. Similarly, this is computer science department. This is the name of the building, where it is running, and this is the budget of this department. This is the finance department. This is the building name, and this is the budget. So there are 20 rows. So that means there are 20 departments in the university. You see, statistics department is also running in Taylor building. Now let's do some queries. So suppose that you want to see, let's do some query with instructor relation. And suppose you want to see the list of all those instructors that belongs to statistics department. So how you will see? You just need to write select. Okay, so select is a clause. With this clause, you specify what records you want to have. We will talk about the structure of the complete structure of this query or select command. So select, and what I want to have the name of the instructors. So name from instructor where dept underscore name equal to statistics. ध्यान रखना है एज इट इज नाम देना है बिकॉज एसक्यूएल इज केस सेंसिटिव फॉर डेटा. टाइपिंग भी मिस्टेक नहीं होनी चाहिए एंड केस शुड मैच. स्टैटिस्टिक्स स्टैटिस्टिक्स ठीक है. अगर होगा गलती होगी टाइपिंग में तो पता चल जाएगा. So these are the 6 instructors that belongs to statistics department. Similarly, if you want to know the instructors from computer science, you can just change this and computer exactly वैसे लिखना पड़ेगा. Your SQL query. So in case of SQL query, this is the following syntax. You will have select. Okay, this is the mandatory. So you can write a small letter also. S की जगह पे small में लिख सकते हैं. Then you will either write star class or you will give a list of columns that you want to see. Okay. Then you will specify from. Then you will give list of tables here. Okay. And this is mandatory. Okay, list of tables. Then you will write where. Here you will give your condition on the basis of which you want to retrieve the data. Okay, only till then अभी हम इतनी ही discuss कर रहे हैं. There are some more things are also there. So SQL query having a more detailed syntax, but we will discuss that later. For the time being, we are just focusing on this part. So let's see again. So when you will specify SQL query, first you will write select clause. So this is a mandatory clause. Okay, so you will write keyword select, and then here I have written this line. So this line indicates that either you will write this or you will write this. ये column ये नहीं लिखना है. It is just a symbol to denoting that you just need to provide a list of columns here. Okay, इसका कोई मतलब नहीं है. ये मैंने ऐसे ही लिखा था. Okay, so either you will give star or you will give list of columns, and it is important that the list will always be comma separated. So here you will specify list of columns that you want to see. Then from, this is again mandatory, you have to provide it, and then you will provide list of tables. So either you will provide the one table name or multiple table name. Okay, multiple table name you will provide when your data you require that 2 or more tables should be combined to answer the query. Okay, so before giving before writing the query, you should know what are the tables from where you will need your data or you will get your data. So उन tables की list यहाँ आपको देना होगी. And then where, here you will specify the condition. Now it is important to remember that this part is optional. Sometimes you may not need to give this condition, because if you want that I want to get all the records and I don't want to put any condition on the type of records that need to be retrieved, you can leave this. So where and condition, these two components are optional actually. So this indicates that these are the optional things. That's why I have written this. So all these are optionals. Either you will write this or you will write this. This symbol indicates or. Either you will write this or you will write this. Similarly, you will have a list of tables here. This is mandatory and this is optional. You will use this clause. This is the clause. This is called where clause. It is called where clause. Okay, we will call it where clause. And this part is called from clause. And this part is called select clause. Okay, so these two clauses, select and from clause, are mandatory. You have to give them these clauses. Okay, this is optional and there are some more optional clauses that we will discuss later. ठीक है, उनके बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे. So now let's do some queries. Okay, so now you see that what query I have executed. This was my select clause, select name. This was my from clause, from instructor. I was having only one table name. This was my where clause, where I gave a condition that defines what record I want. Okay, now you might have noticed that actually this select clause is equivalent to your projection. Okay, you have just studied relational algebra, and relational algebra, you know that we have a projection operator. Projection operator gives you the columns that you want to retrieve. So here you can give list of columns. So this select clause is actually equivalent to projection. Okay, and your this from clause is actually equivalent to writing a relation within bracket. आपको याद होगा in the relational algebra query, within the bracket we write the name of the relation. So that indicates that clause from. So from clause indicates कि आपको कहाँ से डेटा रिट्रीव करना है. So यहीं पर आप इसी within this clause you will do Cartesian product or natural join. Okay, and this is your where clause, and where clause is equivalent to which clause? Can you tell me? In case of relational algebra, what was the operator that allows you to retrieve records on the basis of condition? Forgot? Projection. Remember? So where clause is equivalent to projection of relational algebra, ठीक है, or select clause is equivalent to, no sorry, this is selection not projection, sorry, this is equivalent to selection. Select clause आपको याद होगा, selection operator sigma. So this clause is equivalent to that sigma operator, and this, you can say that this is actually implementation of your sigma operator, where clause, and your select clause is actually implementation of projection. प्रोजेक्शन से ही तो आप कॉलम चूज करते थे, कौन से कॉलम्स आपको आउटपुट में चाहिए, है ना. सो now let me modify this query again. So I am interested in getting name and let's say salary. I want to get two things, name and salary from instructors where department is computer science. So I am getting salary of these two instructors. Now you know that these are the annual salaries. Now if you want to have monthly salary, you can write 12. याद है, in projection we can specify expression, this, see this, salary slash 12. इसे rename आप करके लिख सकते हैं as monthly salary. Okay, मैंने rename कर दिया, because if you don't do this, your column will take the name from the expression itself, this one. Okay, so now you get the monthly salary. So now you see that this column is equivalent to your projection pi, and this is equivalent to your सिग्मा ऑपरेटर, दैट इज सिलेक्शन। ठीक है, इसमें नाम उल्टा हो गया दोनों का, वहां हम इसे सिलेक्शन सेलेक्ट कीवर्ड यूज कर रहे हैं बट इट इज प्रोजेक्शन, नेम सेलेक्ट है बट इट इज प्रोजेक्शन, है ना। ओके, सो now let's write some more queries. Now suppose that I want to get all the records of all the columns of computer science instructors. This is that. अगर मुझे statistics के instructors के सारे records चाहिए, सारे columns चाहिए, we'll write statistics here. Okay, so this is how you can do query. Now suppose you want to get the get the list of instructors that are having salary within a given range. So what you do, you can select name, comma, let's say department name, from instructor where salary less than, let's say, 40,000 and 80,000. Sorry, salary or लिखना. So you salary value also, because salary value is not coming. So let's write it salary. So now you also notice that जिस ऑर्डर में आप यहाँ कॉलम्स की लिस्ट करेंगे उसी ऑर्डर में कॉलम्स डिस्प्ले होंगे. ओके, सो मैं सैलरी को डिपार्टमेंट नेम के बाद लिख रहा हूँ. सॉरी, सैलरी. तो नाउ सैलरी इज कमिंग हियर. अगर इसी को मैं डिपार्टमेंट से पहले लिख दूंगा, देन यू विल सी दैट दिस कॉलम विल अपीयर बिफोर दिस कॉलम. Salary. Okay, now salary is coming here, but that is the better. Okay, now you see that I have given so these boundary points are not included. If you want to include these boundary points also, you can write equal to symbol also. Sorry. Okay, so now if there is some 80,000, it will come. So there is no 80,000 value. Okay, so 18 records are there. Now there is one more alternative. Rather than writing this, I can write this. There is a between and operator, so I can write where salary between 40,000 and 80,000.